Most people don't realize this. Your stomach is not your biggest enemy. Your mind is. And the reason you overeat, the reason you lose control, it's not because you're weak, it's because you were never taught Hara Hachi Bu, the 2,500-year-old Okinawan rule that creates unbreakable self-control, a rule so powerful, it's used by the longest living people on Earth, yet almost nobody outside Japan knows how it truly works. And once you understand this rule, you won't just control your eating. You'll control your urges, impulses, and emotional cravings. You'll control yourself. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you will learn the system that rewires your mind, one quiet choice at a time. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, what part of your life feels out of control right now? Eating, emotions, or focus? I read every comment personally, and if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. This channel is all about helping you build discipline, clarity, and a stronger mind. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The moment everything breaks. His name was Ethan Parker, 37 years old, a quiet man who ate his stress instead of expressing it. He wasn't unhealthy on the outside, but inside, he felt like a man slowly sinking into himself. Food wasn't pleasure anymore. It wasn't even comfort. It had become a reflex, a silent escape he ran to without thinking. Every argument at work ended with chips. Every lonely night ended with takeout. Every failure ended with him standing in front of the fridge, barefoot, tired, looking for something he couldn't name. He knew it was bad. He knew he was spiraling. He even promised himself, tomorrow I'll eat clean. Next Monday I'll start fresh. Next month I'll fix everything. But tomorrow always became another cycle of stress, craving, guilt, punishment, repeat. And each time, the guilt became heavier. He started avoiding mirrors, avoiding photos, avoiding anything that forced him to look at what he had become. One night, after a long shift, he sat alone at the kitchen table with a container of leftover pasta. He wasn't hungry, not even a little. He was simply tired. Tired of thinking, tired of trying, tired of fighting himself. He ate mechanically, barely tasting anything, just chewing and swallowing like a machine. When he finally stopped, the plate was empty. And so was he. He leaned back on the chair, his eyes burning, his stomach tight, his mind whispering the same sentence he'd been avoiding for years. I don't feel in control anymore. He walked to the living room and stopped in front of the TV. It was off, a black mirror reflecting the room. And there, in that reflection, he saw it. A man who looked older than 37, with swollen eyes, a heavy body, a defeated posture. But what struck him most was not the body. It was the expression. A look of someone who no longer trusted himself. A look of someone who kept breaking the same promise every single night. His throat tightened. For the first time in years, he didn't reach for more food to numb the feeling. He let the discomfort hit him. He whispered, "Why can't I stop?" The question echoed in the quiet room, not desperate, but honest. And honesty is where transformation begins. Ethan didn't know it yet, but life was about to place him in front of a lesson older than any modern diet, older than any gym routine, a wisdom practiced by the long-lived people of Okinawa, a rule so ancient, so simple, yet so powerful, that it had shaped some of the healthiest, calmest, most disciplined humans on Earth. Hara Hachi Bu, eat until 80% full. But for Ethan, it would become much more than an eating rule. It would become the system that rebuilt his self-control from the ground up. Chapter 2. The Mysterious Okinawan Doctor. 2 weeks later, Ethan found himself standing in front of a quiet wooden building, tucked between a cluster of black pine trees. The sign outside didn't say clinic. It didn't say dojo either. It simply read, Takamori Wellness House, Mind, Body, Spirit. Inside, sandalwood scented the air. Shoji doors filtered soft sunlight. It felt less like a medical center and more like entering the home of someone who understood life better than most. Ethan waited on a tatami mat, trying to steady his breathing. And then he heard footsteps. Slow, balanced, purposeful. Dr. Osamu Takahashi entered wearing a beige kimono, his silver hair tied neatly behind him. He was 74, but there was something ageless about him, like a man carved from old wisdom itself. His eyes were gentle, yet sharp enough to cut through excuses. Ethan bowed awkwardly. Takahashi bowed perfectly. Sit, the doctor said softly, pouring tea with movements so fluid Ethan couldn't tell where one began and another ended. Ethan exhaled and began explaining everything. The binge-eating cycles, the guilt, the nights he promised to start over, the mornings he woke up feeling like a failure. Dr. Takahashi listened without interrupting. Not once. When Ethan finally finished, the old doctor folded his hands. You believe you lack discipline, he said quietly. But discipline is never the first thing to break. Identity breaks first. Ethan looked down at the tatami. You do not eat because you are hungry, the doctor continued. You eat because you no longer know where enough is. The word struck him like a blade between the ribs. Takahashi poured more tea, letting the silence breathe. In Okinawa, he said, our elders taught us something very old and very simple. He raised one finger. Hara Hachi Bu. Stop eating when you are 80% full. Ethan stared. That's the whole system. The doctor chuckled. No, that is the doorway. He leaned closer. Anyone can stop at 80% once, but to do it every day, every meal, for life, you must become someone new. Ethan felt his heartbeat quicken. Dr. Takahashi continued. Your problem isn't food. Your problem is the part of you that feels empty, even when your stomach is full. The room felt suddenly heavier, quieter. You are not fighting hunger, Ethan. You are fighting the urge to fill silence, emotion, and discomfort with consumption. The doctor placed a small wooden bowl between them. This, he said, tapping the rim, is not just a bowl. It is a mirror. How you fill it reveals how you fill your life. At that moment, Ethan knew he had not come for a diet. He had come for a philosophy, a rebirth. And Dr. Takahashi was about to dismantle his entire understanding of control and rebuild him piece by piece. Chapter 3. The first lesson. Silence before you eat. Dr. Takahashi guided Ethan to a small wooden table, so simple it looked almost ceremonial. There were no decorations, no feast, no extra dishes. Just one bowl of rice and vegetables. Steam rose gently from it, like a quiet offering. Sit, the doctor said. Ethan did. The room was so silent he could hear the soft crackle of incense burning in the corner. Before Ethan could reach for the chopsticks, Dr. Takahashi lifted a hand. Not yet. He placed his palms together, took a slow breath, and closed his eyes. 5 breaths, he whispered, before every meal. you pause. And in that pause, you listen, not to your stomach, but to your mind. Ethan blinked. 5 breaths? That was it. Still, he copied the doctor. Breath 1. Ethan felt the heat of the food. His mouth watered, but something else surfaced too. Impatience. Breath 2. He felt a subtle tightness in his chest. Not hunger. Stress. Breath 3. A heaviness in his head. Worry. His thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind. Breath 4. He realized he hadn't taken a slow breath in years. Everything he ate fast, rushing, escaping, numbing. Breath 5. He understood. He wasn't hungry. He was overwhelmed. Dr. Takahashi opened his eyes, watching Ethan closely. You felt it, didn't you? He said softly. The noise, the restlessness, the impulse to eat quickly. Ethan nodded, embarrassed. Hara Hachi Bu, the doctor continued, begins long before the first bite. You must learn the difference between true hunger and emotional hunger, between nourishment and escape. Ethan swallowed hard, because escape was exactly the word he'd been avoiding. He ate when he was lonely. He ate when he was stressed. He ate when he was bored. He ate because Swartlands frightened him. The doctor placed chopsticks into Ethan's hands. Now eat, but slowly. Taste the food. Feel the temperature. Sense every movement. Ethan took a bite, just one. The taste was simple, almost bland. But in that simplicity, there was clarity. He chewed slowly. He breathed. He noticed. For the first time in his life, he felt every moment of eating, not as a habit, but as a presence. Halfway through the bowl, Ethan felt something unfamiliar. Satisfaction. Not fullness. Satisfaction. He set the chopsticks down instinctively. You stopped, the doctor observed. Yes, I'm not full, but I feel done. Dr. Takahashi smiled. That is Hara Hachi Bu. Stopping before fullness, stopping at enough, stopping where control lives. Ethan realized something profound. He had always eaten until he was numb. He had never learned to stop when he was okay. And that simple act, 5 breaths, slow bites, quiet presence, felt like the first real moment of control he had touched in years. This was not a diet. It was not restriction. It was awakening. And it was only the beginning. Chapter 4. The Secret of the 20-Minute Mind. A week later, Ethan arrived at Dr. Takahashi's home, expecting another quiet meal. Instead, Takahashi led him to a small stone bench in the garden. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and early morning wind chimes. Today, the doctor said, you will learn the most dangerous truth about eating. He picked up a single grain of uncooked rice from a small wooden bowl. Your brain, he said, holding the grain between 2 fingers, moves slowly. Your hunger moves fast. He let the grain fall. Your stomach is 20 minutes behind your mind. Ethan frowned. 20 minutes? Behind? Takahashi nodded. When you eat quickly, you outrun the messenger. You fill your stomach before your brain even wakes up to say, that's enough. So you overshoot. Every single time. He stood, hands tucked behind his back. This is why people feel suddenly full. Not because the fullness arrived suddenly, but because the brain finally caught up. The doctor sat across from Ethan. Today's lesson is simple, he said, but simple is the hardest thing in the world. He placed a bowl of rice and miso vegetables between them. Nothing else. Eat as if time were your companion, he said softly, not your enemy. Ethan lifted his chopsticks. Slow bite. Chew. Pause. Listen. Repeat. At first, Ethan felt ridiculous, like a child learning to use utensils again. His mind kept urging him to eat faster. You don't have time for this. Just finish it. Who eats this slow? But Dr. Takahashi watched him with the patience of a monk. Your impulses will fight you, he said, because impulsive eating is not hunger. It is habit. Halfway through the meal, something shifted. As Ethan chewed slowly, he began noticing sensations he had never felt. The warmth of the rice, the subtle saltiness of miso, the gentle release of breath between bites. And beneath all of it, a soft voice inside him whispering, "You can stop now. You're satisfied." He set his chopsticks down. He wasn't full, but he also wasn't hungry. He felt complete. Takahashi nodded, pleased. That, he said, is the 20-minute mind waking up. And when it wakes up, you discover the truth. You never needed more food. You needed more awareness. Ethan exhaled slowly, surprised by the calmness spreading through him. It wasn't emptiness. It wasn't fullness. It was balance. A feeling he had chased for years through diets, binges, guilt, and shame, and had now touched silently in a single bowl of rice. The doctor rose. Hara Hachi Bu is not about eating less, he said. It is about returning to the conversation between body and mind, a conversation most people have forgotten. Ethan looked down at the half-finished bowl. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel defeated by leaving food behind. He felt powerful, because this time, he chose to stop. And that choice changed everything. Chapter 5. When cravings attack. The breakthrough came with a breakdown. It was a stormy night, the kind where the wind howls around the house, shaking windows as if demanding entry. Ethan sat alone in his small apartment, the glow of his laptop flickering across his face. Emails, deadlines, stress. The familiar pressure building like a knot tightening around his chest. And then, the craving arrived, not as hunger, but as an urge, sharp, sudden, and overwhelming. His mind whispered, "Go to the kitchen. Eat something. You'll feel better." It wasn't food he wanted. It was escape. He walked to the fridge almost unconsciously, like a man pulled by an invisible thread. The light from inside spilled onto the floor when he opened it, glowing against the stormy darkness. For years, this moment always ended the same way. A binge, a collapse, a wave of guilt afterward. But tonight, something new happened. As Ethan reached for a leftover box, a sentence drifted into his mind. Soft, steady, unmistakable. What am I really hungry for? Dr. Takahashi's voice. He froze. The storm rumbled outside. The fridge hummed quietly. But inside Ethan, a war began. He realized he wasn't hungry at all. His stomach felt fine, empty maybe, but not starving. His mind, however, felt heavy, flooded, exhausted. He shut the fridge slowly, not in anger, but in awareness, and it felt like a victory he had never won before. He sat down on the floor, leaning against the cabinet, letting the silence surround him. In that silence, he found the truth. He didn't crave food. He craved relief, He craved calm. He craved someone to tell him it was okay to rest. The food had always been a substitute for comfort. In moments he never learned to comfort himself. The next morning, Ethan confessed to Dr. Takahashi. "I almost ate everything in the fridge last night," Ethan said. "But you didn't," the doctor replied. Ethan hesitated. "I stopped, but it felt strange, like I wasn't sure why." The doctor smiled gently. "That is the power of Hara Hachi Bu. When you learn to pause, even for 3 seconds, your mind returns to you. Cravings are not enemies. They are messengers." "Messengers," Ethan repeated. "Yes," Takahashi nodded. "They tell you something is unbalanced. Fear, loneliness, stress, all cravings begin in the heart, not the stomach." Ethan felt the truth hit him with surprising weight. The doctor continued, "When cravings attack, ask 3 questions. 1. Is this hunger or emotion? 2. What am I trying to avoid right now? 3. Will food solve the real problem? If the answer is no, you step away." He paused, letting the words settle. "Last night," Takahashi said, "you didn't break your streak. You broke your cycle." Ethan exhaled deeply. For the first time, cravings didn't feel like demons he had to fight. They felt like signals, opportunities to understand himself better. And in that small victory, on that stormy night, Ethan realized the real transformation wasn't happening on his plate. It was happening in his mind. Chapter 6. The Deep Truth of Hara Hachi Bu. Weeks passed. Ethan lost weight. But that wasn't the miracle. The real miracle was this. He began stopping before fullness, even when no one was watching, even when he was stressed, even when he was alone. It wasn't willpower. It wasn't discipline. It was identity. One quiet evening, Ethan and Dr. Takahashi sat beneath a blooming plum tree in the doctor's garden. Pink petals drifted across the wooden deck like soft confetti. The doctor sipped tea and spoke with the calm certainty of someone who understood human beings better than they understood themselves. "Hara Hachi Bu is misunderstood," he said. "It does not mean eat less. It means leave space." He gestured gently to the falling petals. Space for digestion, space for gratitude, space for breath, space for life, space for discipline. Ethan listened carefully. The doctor continued. "People think overeating is about greed. It is not. It is about fear. The fear that what you have is not enough, that you are not enough. So they fill themselves with food to avoid feeling empty." Ethan felt those words pierce him, because emptiness had always frightened him. The silence after a long day, the quiet moments where real thoughts surface, the soft ache he carried but never faced. The doctor placed a hand on the small wooden table between them. "Hara Hachi Bu," he said, "trains you to trust emptiness, to trust that you do not need to be full to be okay." He paused, letting the night breeze carry the meaning. "When you leave space in your stomach," he said, "you learn to leave space in your mind. And when you leave space in your mind, your life transforms." Ethan realized the truth. His entire life had been too full of noise, full of phone screens, full of stress, guilt, and emotional clutter, full of automatic habits that drowned out presence. Hara Hachi Bu wasn't about controlling food. It was about reclaiming peace. It taught him the radical idea that less could feel better than more, that stopping early was not deprivation, but liberation. As they sat beneath the plum tree, watching petals fall like slow snowflakes. Ethan understood something he had never expected. Hara Hachi Bu was not a food rule. It was a philosophy of life, a way of living lightly, breathing deeply, and choosing clarity over chaos. And for the first time in years, he felt there was space inside him for a new version of himself to grow. Chapter 7. The Transformation. 3 months later, Ethan was no longer the man who had walked into Dr. Takahashi's clinic, holding his shame like extra weight on his shoulders. His face looked calmer, his steps slower, but more deliberate. He wasn't rushing through meals or inhaling food to drown stress. Something fundamental inside him had shifted. Yes, he had lost weight. Yes, his digestion improved. Yes, he felt lighter. But the true transformation had nothing to do with his body. It was his relationship with control. For the first time in his adult life, he felt like he was steering his decisions instead of being dragged by impulses. Stopping at 80% became more than a rule. It became a mirror. Every day he practiced Hara Hachi Bu, he saw reflections of the places in his life where he had always overflowed. He used to overflow with anger, reacting before thinking. Now he paused, letting emotions breathe before choosing a response. He used to overflow with fear, backing away from hard decisions. Now he took small steps, trusting gradual progress. He used to overflow with avoidance, burying himself in food, screens, noise. Now he faced discomfort with a steady breath. Stopping at 80% taught Ethan something he'd never learned in school, therapy, or self-help books. Control is built in the moments you choose enough. Because a man who can stop himself at the dinner table can stop himself anywhere. One evening, Ethan visited his sister for dinner. They laughed, talked, and filled their plates. Halfway through the meal, Ethan put down his fork and leaned back, smiling. "You're done?" she asked, surprised. "There's still so much left." "I'm satisfied," he said simply. Not explaining, not apologizing, no more guilt, just peace. His sister studied him closely. "You seem different," she said. "Calmer, happier." Ethan thought about it. The cravings he had resisted, the silence he had learned to sit with, the moments he had chosen presence over escape. "I think," he said, "I'm finally learning how to stop before I lose myself." And that was the truth. It wasn't about food anymore. Stopping at 80% had become a philosophy that reached into every corner of his life. 80% of the anger, 80% of the drama, 80% of the stress, 80% of the cravings, 80% of the noise. Ethan was reclaiming space. Space for clarity, peace, and self-respect. And as Dr. Takahashi would later tell him, the man who masters stopping is the man who masters himself. Chapter 8. The Legacy of the Rule. On Ethan's last morning in Okinawa, the sky glowed with a pale gold light, the kind that made every roof tile and every tree appear softer, calmer, as if the entire island practiced Hara Hachi Bu with the sun itself. Dr. Takahashi invited him for one final walk through the village. Children played barefoot in the dust roads. Elders tended to small vegetable gardens. Mothers prepared breakfast with slow, intentional movements. No rush, no chaos, no excess. "This village," Takahashi said, "has followed the same simple rhythm for centuries." He paused as they watched an elderly couple share a bowl of porridge, each taking modest bites, smiling between them. "These people live long," he continued, not because they eat perfectly, but because they live lightly. Ethan felt the truth in those words. Not just physically light, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually light. No overeating, no overspending, no overworking, no overthinking. Just enough. And enough was beautiful. Takahashi led Ethan to a small hill overlooking the coastline. Waves shimmered like silver cloth under the morning light. Hara Hachi Bu, the doctor said softly, is not about restricting the body. It is about freeing the mind. He looked at Ethan with the warmth of a teacher watching a student finally awaken. You came here drowning, he said, not in food, but in overwhelm, in noise, in guilt. Today you walk lighter, not because you eat less, but because you carry less. Ethan swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the emotion rising in his throat. He had come to Okinawa to fix his eating. He was leaving with a new way of living. Takahashi placed a hand on his shoulder. You now honor your limits, he said, and a man who honors his limits never becomes lost. Ethan bowed deeply. As he boarded the plane later that day, he felt a sense of clarity he hadn't felt since childhood. Not excitement, not fear, just calm. When he returned home, everything felt different. His kitchen didn't tempt him. Meals didn't control him. Silence didn't scare him. He no longer chased fullness. He chased presence. And slowly, effortlessly, the people around him noticed. His sister began eating slower at dinners. His co-workers started taking mindful breaks. His friends asked why he seemed more peaceful. He hadn't preached anything. He simply lived differently. That was the legacy of Hara Hachi Bu. When you live lightly, you give others permission to breathe. And Ethan realized something profound. He wasn't just carrying a philosophy. He was carrying a gift, one that could be passed quietly from person to person, plate to plate, breath to breath. A gift that began with stopping at 80% and ended with becoming 100% yourself. If you're still here, it means you're not just watching a video. You're standing at the edge of a new version of yourself. So here is your challenge, warrior. For the next 14 days, stop eating at 80%. Every meal, every time. Not because it's easy, not because it's trendy, but because this single habit will prove something life-changing. You can keep a promise to yourself. Before every meal, ask, am I hungry or am I seeking comfort? Am I present or escaping? Can I leave space for control? Then write one sentence in the comments. I accept the 80% challenge. This small declaration will anchor you. It will hold you accountable. And 2 weeks from now, you will feel a shift, not just in your body, but in the way you exist. Your journey begins now. Walk lightly, eat mindfully, live intentionally, and as always, be present. Walk with honor. Subscribe to Discipline Dojo.